Good evening, everyone. I'll be talking about Jude Carroll's IB position paper, Academic Honesty in the IB. This paper presents the challenges students face in being honest and how teachers, schools, and learners share a responsibility towards supporting academic honesty. In the IB, academic honesty is making knowledge, understanding, and thinking transparent. This develops from students being supported and taught academic honesty throughout the PYP, NYP, and DP programs by combining technical aspects such as citing and referencing with understanding how knowledge is constructed. It is through teaching and learning that promotes the understanding and practice of academic honesty. To begin with, it is necessary to have a clear understanding of plagiarism and collusion. Plagiarism occurs when someone uses words, ideas, or work products attributed to another person or source without attributing the work to the source from which it was obtained, in a situation in which there is a legitimate expectation of original authorship and in order to obtain some benefit, credit, or gain. On the other hand, collusion is identified as occurring when an unattributed source is one or more fellow learners. Or simply put, it occurs when a student submits a piece of work that is more than one student's contribution, although it is supposed to be a solo activity. In the IB, plagiarism also extends to the acknowledgement of others' ideas, images, data, and work products. Particularly in the DP, students need to make sure to acknowledge all the sources they use. Students acknowledging the source not only values the work that the learner did, but increases the authority of the learner's use of the source. This sees students focusing on learning as opposed to avoiding plagiarism, while also improving the quality of their own work. Students' intent cannot be taken into account for breaches of academic honesty. Therefore, students need to have a clear understanding and knowledge of how to indicate, cite, and perform. Nowadays, students have easy access to unlimited information through developments in technology, communication, and information management. This is an advantage for students, but with power to get answers quickly and easily, it threatens to remove students' engagement and level of work. In some situations, students might take advantage of these modern conveniences to gain unfair advantage. Types of unfair advantages can be sneaking answers into exams, unauthorized access to assessment questions, hiring impersonators, and buying papers online. According to Turnitin, the internet-based plagiarism has been rising. Paper mills and cheat websites such as OddPapers, Big Nerds, and PaperCamp accounted for 19% of all sources in students' writing in 2013. However, 80% of academic honesty cases are related to the misuse of others' work through plagiarism or collusion. The misuse of others' work is seen as most part are not being deliberate and related to misunderstanding and not complying with the rules. An example would be taking multiple chunks of text and stitching them together without acknowledging the original source, as opposed to paraphrasing. When looking at the standards of academic honesty, Carroll states schools shouldn't have rules on what percentage of unoriginal work is or isn't acceptable, nor should they defer to generic IB requirements for honesty. Local judgments are needed to assess what has attributed to the breach. Misuse does not need to be deliberate before taking action, and penalties should match the degree of the breach. The key point is, changes in information and communication technology mean that finding and reproducing others' knowledge is not evidence of learning as defined within the constructive learning paradigm. The ways in which the IB addresses academic honesty in the DP, NYP, and DP differ. Each of the programs are expected to have an honesty policy. The expectations for students' knowledge of academic honesty is achieved over a continuum, building from the previous program. This is especially noticeable in the DP that requires a formal and codified academic policy. It is interesting to see how each program addresses academic honesty from the viewpoints of school, teacher, and students. The PYP approach to academic honesty focuses on teachers and parents' understanding. Inside the classroom, the teacher, through inquiry-based assessment, is required to show how students acknowledge others and reflect on their learning. Creative tasks assist in this process, requiring students to research information and acknowledge the sources. At the school level, they inform parents of not only what counts as academic honesty, but also the type of assistance that is appropriate as to share the working responsibility. Students are required to show where they have used others' work by naming or identifying the person. If this is applied to everything they do, it will be less confusing over time. The MYP builds off the PYP and applies additional aspects to encourage academic honesty. Schools are required to reinforce policy, making explicit the expectations for autonomy and independence, and to make sure students are consistent in referencing others' work. Teachers are encouraged to offer specific clarifications and to use inquiry-based assessment, which also encourages information literacy, problem solving, and skill management. Students are required to track the use of sources, apply developmental approaches to learning, and use signaling techniques such as quotation marks, reflective commentary, and make formal and informal acknowledgements. Learning how to cite and reference are a key learning component in the MYP. The DP takes a more formal and codified approach to academic honesty. Schools are required to develop their academic policy for the school context within the IB expectations. At this stage, there is to be a chosen reference system and detailed usage guide to provide teachers and students with the standards for plagiarism and citations. Breaches of policy need to have in place solutions for dealing with different cases, including what and how penalties are selected. Teachers are required to monitor and assess students' work for potential breaches of academic honesty, particularly within the extended essay. The teachers of academic writing focus students on not avoiding plagiarism, but focus them on scholarship and using supporting evidence to support their writing, and also hone their research skills to know what sources are appropriate and reliable. Students can strengthen their academic honesty by learning about academic writing, seeking clarification, and using different techniques. In addition, time management and self-management are also mentioned, as this is a common explanation by students for their breaches of academic honesty. With how busy students' lives are, this is not surprising. These aspects together see students as being active and reflective in their learning. The way the IB addresses academic honesty through learning, as opposed to teaching the rules, is unique, and will develop skills required of students' education now and in the future. It sees students as taking a greater role and having a greater understanding of their work and the work of others. Students reach higher levels of academic achievement and learn to discover, engage, and utilize resources in the internet age. Another benefit is the shared responsibility towards academic honesty. The school, teachers, parents, and students know what is expected, making academic honesty clear and transparent while enforcing the integrity of the IB program. Acknowledging sources, citing, and referencing are challenging skills. Establishing the recognition of sources at the start of student education places IB students in an advantageous position over students who are required to learn these skills in the latter years of their educations. These skills are especially important for students that are going on to tertiary education. The building of academic honesty over each of the programs in a beneficial way for students who attend all three levels of the IB program, but what about students who enter a new IB school or do not attend the PYP or MYP program? These students might have difficulty understanding what is expected or have no background of academic honesty. This could see students being confused or overwhelmed by what is expected, or even possibly plagiarizing without knowing it. Another issue is a lack of institutional consistency. IB schools are required to develop, embed, and communicate their own academic policy to suit their culture. In an international school, whose culture is being reflected? How will this affect other students? The other aspect is related to different standards. One school academic policy might not be the same as another school. In one school it might be much stricter than another school. Breaches could possibly be treated differently. This create your own policy and international program which wants to show integrity and equality does not make sense. Finally, even if a school has an academic policy, how can we be certain that it will follow up, report breaches, or not cover up to save face and avoid issues? There is an imbalance in the academic honesty standards, and there needs to be a designated set of rules as opposed to allowing schools to write their own policy to fit the context. I believe that all breaches should not be dealt with by the school, but directed to the IBO. Here are my questions, and thank you for listening.